Football is the most watched sport on earth. Billions of people tune in every single week to witness the drama, the passion, the beauty of the beautiful game.
Get it easily. Gary Cahill trying to attack it.
But sometimes, what the cameras capture is not a goal celebration, not a last-minute winner, not a trophy being lifted. Sometimes the cameras capture something that no one in the stadium, no one watching at home was ever supposed to see.
And footballers impacted by life-threatening heart conditions.
A player collapsing, a player dying, right there on the pitch, in front of their teammates, their families, the entire world.
He put up a great performance and he died in service to the nation.
These are the footballers who were killed on camera. Marc-Vivien Foé, June 26, 2003. Cameroon faced Colombia in the Confederations Cup semi-final at the Stade de Gerland in Lyon, France. The stakes could not have been higher. A place in the final. Marc-Vivien Foé was everywhere that night. Powerful, commanding, relentless. Standing at 6'2", he was an imposing, powerful midfielder who had been central to Cameroon's back-to-back African Cup of Nations titles at the turn of the millennium. Manchester City had just made his loan move permanent. He was 28 years old. His whole future was ahead of him. And then, in the 72nd minute, something changed. Foé collapsed in the centre circle with no other players near him. No contact, no tackle. He simply dropped, alone, in the middle of the pitch. The stadium fell deathly silent. After attempts to resuscitate him on the pitch, he was stretchered off the field, where he received mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and oxygen. Medics spent 45 minutes attempting to restart his heart, and, although he was still alive upon arrival at the stadium's medical centre, he died shortly afterwards. The world watched in disbelief. A first autopsy failed to establish the cause of the 28-year-old's death, but a second found he had been suffering from a condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a silent killer hidden in plain sight.
And footballers impacted by life-threatening heart conditions.
Foé had passed every medical check. He had shown no symptoms. As one cardiologist explained, people with the condition are about 3 to 5 times more likely to suffer a cardiac arrest if exercising vigorously. And sadly, 80% of sportsmen who die from this condition have no prior warning signals, and sudden death is the first presentation. No warning, no chance. Manchester City boss Kevin Keegan, still grief-stricken days later, said simply, "Mark was not only a special footballer but a very special person. We will all miss his smile and his personality. Nothing was ever too much trouble for him, and he was the ultimate professional, loved by everyone in the dressing room and the boardroom." Foé left behind a wife and sons aged 6 and 3, as well as a daughter of only 2 months old. The player's generosity had been legendary, and there were reports that he had not much money left behind because he had been sending a proportion of his wages home every month to fund a football academy he was building in Yaoundé. Foé was given a state funeral in Cameroon. Manchester City retired his number 23 shirt permanently. Lyon retired his number 17, a legend, gone at 28, on camera, in front of the whole world. Antonio Puerta. 4 years later, August 25, 2007, Sevilla were kicking off their new La Liga season at home against Getafe. Born in Seville, Antonio Puerta had joined Sevilla FC as a boy and spent a total of 14 years at the club. He grew up in the academy alongside Sergio Ramos and Jesus Navas. He was not just a Sevilla player, he was a Sevilla son, and he had already given Sevilla something unforgettable. In the club's 100th year, in the 100th minute of the second leg against Schalke 04, Puerta scored a spectacular left-footed volley which carried Sevilla to a 1-0 win and into the UEFA Cup final, where they dominated Middlesbrough 4-0. That goal was the spark for an era, 5 trophies in 15 months. His impressive performances earned him international recognition and reported interest from Arsenal, Manchester United and Real Madrid, but all bids were rejected. Sevilla would not sell their diamond. Then came that August day. During the 35th minute of Sevilla's La Liga season opener against Getafe, Puerta suddenly collapsed near the penalty area after jogging back toward his goal, suffering a cardiac arrest. Teammates Ivica Dragutinovic and Andres Palop immediately ran to his side as he lost consciousness. The cameras caught everything, every horrifying second. Here is the detail that makes this story even more devastating. Medical staff performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation and used a defibrillator to revive him. He briefly regained consciousness and walked to the dressing room, but then collapsed again there, requiring requiring further resuscitation before being transported to hospital. For 3 days, 45,000 Sevilla fans held their breath. Puerta's coffin was laid in the stadium, while thousands upon thousands waited hours in line to pay their respects. Dr. Francisco Murillo reported that Puerta had suffered multiple organ failure and irreversible brain damage as a result of multiple prolonged cardiac arrests due to an incurable hereditary heart disease known as arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. He was 22 years old. Puerta's girlfriend, Mar Roldan, was nearly 7 months pregnant with his son when he died. 2 months later, his boy Aitor was born into a world without his father. As a mark of respect, FIFA ordered the installation of resuscitation rooms in every stadium that hosted World Cup qualifiers. That is Antonio Puerta's legacy. Not just the goals, not just the trophies, the lives he may have saved after he lost his own. Miklos Ferher. Now here is the story that, even decades later, still stops people cold. January 25, 2004, Benfica versus Vitória de Guimarães in Portugal. The match was being broadcast live on television. Benfica were leading 1-0. Hungarian striker Miklos Ferher had just come on as a substitute, and then he did something extraordinary. Ferher had just come on and assisted another player just off the bench, Fernando Aguiar, for the match's only goal, an assist. Moments of pure joy, but the joy would not last. In injury time, with Benfica holding on, Ferher tried to waste time near the touchline. The referee booked him, yellow card, and here is the moment that haunts everyone who watched it. As the referee showed Ferher the yellow card, Ferher gave him a knowing, sheepish smile. He then turned around, bent over as if to catch his breath, and fell backwards, laying lifeless on the pitch. That smile. That was the last thing Ferher ever did in front of the cameras. He smiled, turned around, and was gone. 24 years old. Members of both teams rushed immediately to aid Ferher before medical personnel arrived on the pitch. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation was performed, an ambulance arrived on the pitch, and he was rushed to hospital. Before midnight, his death was confirmed, the cause being cardiac arrhythmia brought on by hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same condition that would claim Antonio Puerta 3 years later, the same killer that had taken Marc-Vivien Foé the year before. When team medics tried to revive him, some Benfica players kneeled to pray while others were crying, including coach José Antonio Camacho. In his memory, Benfica retired the number 29 shirt, which he wore during his time at the club. Benfica's delegation, including President Luis Felipe Vieira, coach Giovanni Trapattoni, and the entire first-team squad, travelled to Hungary, presenting Ferher's parents with the 2004-05 League Championship medal, a gesture of love, of brotherhood, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could replace what was lost. The smile, the man, Miklos Ferher. Samuel Okwaragi. Let's go back even further, to one of the earliest tragedies ever captured on camera. August 12, 1989, Nigeria versus Angola, a 1990 World Cup qualifier in Lagos. But Samuel Okwaragi was not just a footballer. This man was extraordinary. He was a qualified lawyer who had a master's degree in international law from the Pontifical Lateran University of Rome. He had studied in Italy while playing football simultaneously. A genius, a pioneer, more than 100,000 fanatical supporters, well beyond the stadium's 80,000 official capacity, had been crammed into the national stadium in Lagos on a baking hot day. The atmosphere was electric. Nigeria needed this win to stay in contention for World Cup qualification, and Okwaragi was determined to deliver. He had already told his club back in Belgium directly, "You cannot stop me playing for my country, and let me tell you, I am going to represent my country in the World Cup in Italy, whether you like it or not." Then, he collapsed and died of congestive heart failure in the 77th minute of the World Cup qualification match against Angola.
He put up a great performance and he died in service to the nation.
The Lagos Stadium ambulance failed to start. He was declared dead that night. Incredible. The man who refused to let anything stop him from playing for his country literally died for his country. His teammate Etim Esin could barely process it. We all thought he had merely fainted and that he was going to recover. Everything happened so fast, and I still can't believe it that a few minutes before he died, he was running alongside the rest of us on the pitch.
Okwaragi died in that game. Nobody touched him. In fact, I was the last guy he spoke to when he bent down.
20 years after his death, the Nigerian government erected a statue of Sam Okwaragi in front of the stadium where he died. A statue for the man who gave everything. The lawyer, the footballer, the patriot. Pier Mario Morosini. If you thought the story of Marc-Vivien Foé and Antonio Puerta had pushed football to change, the case of Pier Mario Morosini would prove that the system still had dark, terrible failures. April 14, 2012, Livorno versus Pescara. Italian Serie B, Morosini had been orphaned in his teens. His mother died when he was 15 and was followed by his father 2 years later. His brother died shortly afterward too, leaving the young Morosini with just an older sister. And yet, despite all of that grief, Morosini played. He kept fighting. He told interviewers, "They are things which mark you and change your life, but at the same time, they instill in your body so much anger and help you to always give everything to realize what was also my parents' dream." On April 14, 2012, while representing Livorno, Morosini suffered cardiac arrest and fell to the ground in the 31st minute of the Serie B match away to Pescara. He stumbled on the ground, trying to get up before losing consciousness and receiving medical attention on the field. And here is where football's shame begins. According to news agency ANSA, a city police car was blocking the stadium's exit for the ambulance for nearly a minute. Then it gets worse. Despite original reports that a defibrillator was used in an attempt to revive Morosini, Livorno and Pescara, physicians neglected to use the technology to save the 25-year-old, which would have given Morosini a better chance to survive. The defibrillator was there, they just did not use it in time. After Morosini was taken to hospital, the match was abandoned with Livorno leading 2-0, and some players reportedly left the field in tears. Reports later indicated he died before reaching the hospital. Dr. de Blasi confirmed. Unfortunately, he was already dead when he arrived at hospital. He didn't regain consciousness. 3 doctors were later tried for manslaughter. The world of football had failed Pier Mario Morosini, the boy who had lost his entire family, the man who played to honor their memory. He deserved so much better. Patrick E. Keng. If you think Morosini's case exposed the failures of football's medical culture, Patrick E. Keng's story is even more shocking because it happened 4 years later, and nothing had been fixed. On May 6, 2016, Ekeng came on as a second-half substitute in a televised match against Viitorul Constanta. He had been fatigued that day and had told his best friend that he did not want to play. 7 minutes after his entrance, with his team leading 3-2, he collapsed. The match was live on television. Millions were watching. After coming on as a substitute, in the 70th minute, Ekeng collapsed in the center circle. His knees bent before he tumbled backwards. He went into cardiac arrest at 10 in the evening. And now, here is the part that should have led to serious prosecutions. An inquiry by the Romanian Interior Ministry found that the ambulance which transported Ekeng had faulty equipment and expired medicine. Faulty equipment, expired medicine, at a professional football match. The doctor responsible for the medical response was later charged with manslaughter on reports that she did not attempt to resuscitate Ekeng in the ambulance. Since the death of another Nigerian player in Romania in 2012, the Footballers' Union had lobbied for every game to have an available, equipped ambulance. Nobody listened, and Patrick Ekeng paid with his life. 9 days after his death, his funeral was held in his hometown, attended by past and present Cameroonian internationals and the nation's sports minister. Natalie, his wife, pregnant, wore a white dress and hat as she said goodbye to the father of her unborn child. The club pledged that if they won the cup, the trophy would be brought to Cameroon and placed on Ekeng's grave. 26 years old, a live TV match, a faulty ambulance. The system failed him completely. Phil O'Donnell. Not every story on this list comes from a major international tournament or a top European league. Sometimes, tragedy strikes in the most ordinary of settings, and it hits no less hard. December 29, 2007. Motherwell versus Dundee United at Fir Park. Just 4 months after Antonio Puerta's death had rocked the football world, Phil O'Donnell was a Scottish football legend, 2 spells at Motherwell, a stint at Celtic, over 250 career appearances. The 35-year-old was in the twilight of his career, but still giving everything for his boyhood club. His family was in the stands, his wife, 4 children, just a regular Saturday, just a game. In the 78th minute, O'Donnell was substituted. He was walking off the pitch, ready to be replaced, when he suddenly collapsed near the touchline. Cameras caught it all. He received treatment from Motherwell and Dundee United club medics on the field before being taken by ambulance to Wishaw General Hospital. He was pronounced dead at 14:30. A post-mortem confirmed he died of left ventricular failure. His heart simply gave out at 35 years old. while walking off a football pitch.
The tragic events on the field of play and the week, to pay their last respects and to say farewell to Phil O'Donnell.
The Scottish football community was shattered. O'Donnell was not just a player, he was a beloved figure, described by those who knew him as a gentleman first and a footballer second. Motherwell retired his number 10 shirt. They erected a statue outside Fir Park. And the terrible year of 2007, which had already claimed Puerta, now claimed another. 2 footballers, both taken by their hearts, both on camera, both leaving families behind. Talk about a brutal year for the beautiful game. Serginho. Here is one that not many people outside of Brazil know about, but the images from this match are genuinely among the most disturbing ever broadcast in football. October 27, 2004, São Caetano versus São Paulo in Brazil's Campeonato Brasileiro. Paulo Sérgio Oliveira da Silva, known as Serginho, was a defender for São Caetano. The match had been going for 60 minutes. Everything seemed normal. Then Serginho collapsed on the pitch during a corner kick. Just like Foé. No contact, no fall, just gone. Medics worked on him desperately. Incredibly, the match was restarted after he was taken off, with players not yet knowing the outcome. He was rushed to hospital but could not be saved. He had died of cardiac arrest. The autopsy revealed something staggering. Serginho's heart was double the size of the typical human heart and weighed 600 grams. 600 grams. The average adult heart weighs around 300 grams. His heart was a ticking time bomb inside his body, and nobody had detected it. He had passed medical examinations. He had played professionally for years. His enlarged heart had been invisible to every test. The shock in Brazil was immense. This was a nationally televised match. Millions had watched a man die in front of their eyes, and then watched the game continue. São Paulo issued statements of grief and condolences, but the question that lingered, the question that still lingers, is how can a heart double the standard size go undetected? Serginho's death did not just break hearts, it broke confidence in the entire system of athlete medical monitoring in Brazil, and maybe everywhere else too. Peter Biaksangzuala. Now, this next story is different from all the others, and in many ways, it is one of the most heartbreaking, because the moment that killed Peter Biaksangzuala began as the happiest moment of his life. October 19th, 2014, Bethlehem Vengthlang FC versus Chanmari West FC in the Mizoram Premier League in northeastern India. Peter Biaksangzuala scored an equalizer and attempted a somersault goal celebration. He was 23 years old. A defensive midfielder full of joy. He scored. He did backflips to celebrate. It was pure, unfiltered happiness. And then the final backflip went wrong. He landed badly, horribly wrong. He tried to get up, but could not. His teammates swarmed around him immediately. He suffered spinal cord damage, which led to his death on October 23, 2014. 4 days. 4 days between scoring a goal in the most joyful moment of his young career and dying from that moment. The footage is difficult to watch, not because of violence, not because of any aggression, but because you see the exact second that celebration became a catastrophe. The goal, the backflip, the landing, and then nothing. This is the story that perhaps more than any other on this list shows how utterly fragile life is. A goal, a backflip, and a 23-year-old boy is gone. His teammates, the ones who ran to him, the ones who were celebrating with him seconds earlier, had to watch helplessly as his body lay still on that pitch. Football had never seen a tragedy quite like it, and hopefully, it never will again. Albert Ebose Bojongo. And finally, one of the most disturbing cases of all, because this one was not a medical tragedy. It was murder. August 23, 2014, USM Alger versus JS Kabylie in Algeria. Albert Ebose Bojongo, a 24-year-old Cameroonian striker, had just played a match that ended 2-1 in defeat. The match was being broadcast live when Ebose scored for his side, but it was not enough. His team lost. As the teams were leaving the field after the final whistle, Albert Ebose was struck in the head by a projectile thrown from the crowd. Thrown by his own team's supporters. He was rushed to hospital, but died a few hours later from a traumatic brain injury. 24 years old, scored a goal, walked off the pitch, and was killed by people sitting in the stands who were upset about the result. The deaths of Marc-Vivien Foé, Miklos Ferrer, and Antonio Puerta within a few years had prompted FIFA to enforce screening of players at all levels before competitions and mandate the presence of AEDs and sideline medical teams with specialized training. But no cardiac screening in the world could have saved Albert Ebose. What killed him was hatred. Rage, a mob mentality so out of control that a man was killed for the result of a football match. The Algerian Football Federation suspended all football activities indefinitely after his death. A subsequent coroner's post-mortem suggested he may have died from a severe beating rather than just a single projectile. Either way, it was murder at a football ground, broadcast live. His final moments were captured on camera. The beautiful game, at its most ugly, Albert Ebose Bojongo, never forgotten. Every name on this list was a footballer who just wanted to play the game they loved. Marc-Vivien Foé, Antonio Puerta, Miklos Ferrer, Samuel Okwaraji, Piermario Morosini, Patrick Ekeng, Phil O'Donnell, Serginho, Peter Biaksangzwala, Albert Ebose, young men, full of dreams, taken too soon, in front of the world, with the cameras rolling. Which of these tragic stories affected you the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. And before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goal Rivals so you don't miss the next ones.